Hey, you may know me as the guy with Cowboy Bebop transition slides, or Deep Rock Galactic Evangelion transition slides. I forgot to mention the Cowboy Bebop slides were for my Titanfall 2 video. Anyway, I'm here to talk about Resident Evil. I recently played through the whole thing on stream, and it's funny because I'm doing this review back to back with I think I'm planning to do like 7 today because I have a lot of spare time. And I wanted to talk about Resident Evil since I hadn't played through the whole game in years, and a lot of my memories from it for me as a child struggling with the GameCube version. I think it was GameCube. God, I can't remember my consoles, and I'm sorry if that makes me a fake gamer. But I really enjoyed the remake on Steam of Resident Evil. I had a great time with it. We did the Jill campaign, and we did it on easy, which is really unfortunate, because I meant to do it on normal. But the way you select difficulty in Resident Evil is you're given a questionnaire. And the questionnaire is, how do you like to do your hikes or games? And there's 3 options. There's one, super easy walk in the park baby mode. 2, a nice challenge, just a regular strenuous hike. And 3rd, like climbing an apocalyptic mountain while it's raining hellfire. And, none of those were. But I made the unfortunate choice of choosing the middle option, thinking that would be normal, and that was not the case. So I feel a little robbed, but I still had a very good time with the game, and I died quite a bit. It may be because I was streaming it, it may be because I'm just bad at survival horror games now. I guess perks of being an adult. But I really enjoyed Resident Evil 1, and I think I might like it more than my favorite Resident Evil game, the RE2 remake. I adore that game with every ounce of my being, and I plan to play it again soon, so I'll have a more comprehensive showcase of all my thoughts on it afterwards. But the mansion, the Spencer Mansion, I should say, in Resident Evil 1, I think is one of my favorite areas in gaming to explore and figure out all the nooks and crannies of. It's a really fun experience that I greatly enjoyed. Slowly unraveling and getting used to the layout, dealing with the zombies, and how they're not really meant to just gun them all down. I was mortified. I'd run out of ammo because on day 1 of me starting Resident Evil 1, I was incredibly intoxicated. I was celebrating the American holiday of 4th of July, which in retrospect was not a great idea to get drunk before starting Resident Evil 1 because I wasted a ton of my ammo and burned through all my kerosene, which is another mechanic entirely. But I really enjoyed the game. I enjoyed it that first stream too, even though I made very little progress. But I really enjoyed the game and the fact I had so much freedom to handle a lot of those encounters via with violence or the responsible thing, which is avoiding them, especially so early on. And I think everything about the game is just really fun once you're in the spin of things. A lot of the puzzles in survival horror never really evolve past you grab an item and you go to said place with said item. But what makes the original Resident Evil, or I guess the original Resident Evil remake, so special is that it's that gameplay loop, but it's so fun. And I think it's because the Spencer Mansion is so interesting. There's lots of cool lore tidbits, and another thing about the game that I actually really like, and this may sound a little silly, but the game is basically Boo Haunted House, which is very dated. It's like you go in a room, brah, zombie jump scare, or boom, giant snake, or boom, giant spider. I know, I should have a jump scare warning. And I think it's just really fun. And I was genuinely scared at times, because my thing with old games is you never know what people put in them, dude. There could be a real life burned corpse, and come to think of it, I think Half-Life 2 does have a real burned person's face, but I don't know if that's just a rumor or not. I hope to God that isn't true. And Resident Evil just brings so much to the table in regards to that. And I think all of the locations are pretty fun. So it's a Resident Evil game, so there's always the mansion, or the main cool mansion-esque spot. There's the sewer-esque place, though I guess in Resident Evil's case, it's more of a I guess a residence, just the residence part. And then the third one is labs, as always. Granted, I guess RE4 and some of the other ones break it, but you know, it's basically the main spot, a side spot, a science spot. And I really liked all three. I found myself getting pretty interested and invested in just everything about the game. I really, really enjoyed all three locations, even though I don't think I liked labs nearly as much as the other two, but it's very short. And the enemy designs are cool, the lore is cool, it's very silly. I think the original voice acting may have been different. I don't really know all the differences between the original and the remake, but the version on Steam, the dialogue is just really awkward, weird, and stunted, and I kind of like that, and I couldn't tell you why it scratches an itch in my brain, because I think it's objectively terrible. And I think there's also some terrible things about the game, but granted, it's more so the game being old and me being bad at games. The limited inventory is really frustrating at times. I don't particularly enjoy that, like, at all. I think it greatly hampers your experience to be running from item bots to puzzle, but you know what? That's okay. Gameplay still feels good. Shooting zombies is cool. I think melee combat is terrible, but I don't really think it's supposed to be a viable option. I've read that Chris has significantly better knife handling than Jill. I couldn't tell you. I was not brave enough to play his campaign because he gets less inventory slots, and I'm a coward. Maybe I'll do it on stream one day, but other than that, I really particularly enjoy just about most of everything in the game. There's so much, like, old school charm, especially with classic survival horror, that I feel like you don't always get, especially with newer titles. So it's really important to kind of make use of it, and how the fear factor builds, and how best to, like, go through the game and have fun. Now, granted, that isn't always the case. There's plenty of, like, modern survival horror games that, like, kick ass and still scare the hell out of me. The Dead Space 1 remake being absolutely fantastic and still scaring the crap out of me, even though I'm significantly armed to the teeth in that game. But I think one of my favorite things about Resident Evil 1 has to be just the overall flow of objective to objective. At times, I'll feel lost and confused, but I always kind of end up making my way to the very end, or making progress. And I like that it's very, like, monstrous in parts of it. I don't know. Lisa, I don't remember her last name. Trevor, I think, is a very scary creature. She scares the hell out of me, and my hope is that she'll be an RE9. Would she? Will she? I sincerely doubt it, but if you guys don't know who I'm talking about, you gotta play Resident Evil, man. She's really, really cool. I'll just say that. Well, and sad and disgusting, but look, man, it's a cool enemy, okay? I'm not the reason she's that way. But I think overall, my only real complaints is just the sign of the times. And even then, it's the sign of the times. It was just how games were back then, you know? So yeah, Resident Evil is nigh perfect, I think. I really dislike, oh god, the whole inventory bit, and I think that's kinda it. That's really the only thing holding it back for me. There were times when I was lost and confused, and times where I think the game is like, God, I'm trying to quit cursing, so pardon me for thinking of not a curse word. Unfair. I think there's plenty of times where the game is comically unfair, but that's okay. It's a sign of the times, and I don't know, other games I love to pieces also have bits where they are comically unfair. So Resident Evil is still peak. I don't care what anyone says. Granted, I don't know if I'd say that if I played it on normal. Maybe I'd just say it was more unfair, but I meant to play it on normal. That's what matters. And I really enjoyed the game. I streamed it, and it was just really cool. I really enjoyed everything I did. So I think that's kind of it. I don't have too much to say other than I really love the game. The gameplay loop is great. I love how the default zombies are also a really major threat throughout the whole time. I think that's something the RE2 remake really lacked. Granted, I have been told that the original RE2 is very different than the remake, so maybe it's similar to the original in that aspect. But in Resident Evil 2 Remake, enemies are more so a minor obstacle, while in Resident Evil 1, they're like a situation. So basically, once you down an enemy in Resident Evil 1, if it's down for too long, it'll get up to be a Crimson Head, which is a big, fancy science word meaning an enemy that'll probably kill you. Which is why there's kerosene around the mansion, and I guess in the other areas, to have you burn bodies so that doesn't happen. And I really like that as a mechanic. I've never was like completely out of kerosene, and it also inspires the player to be like, hey, you can kill enemies, just be very intelligent about it. It's like a good way to punish the player for killing enemies. I guess a bad way. Well, okay, I love Death Stranding to death, right? But if you kill somebody in Death Stranding, if I remember correctly, you gotta... In the lore of Death... God, we're getting so off topic. In the lore of Death Stranding, if somebody is, like, downed, their corpse becomes, like, a freaking nuclear explosion. So, if that guy dies, you gotta take the ultimate punishment of taking a detour, lugging his sorry corpse to, like, an incineration plant. I think, if I remember correctly. I could be thinking of something else, but I don't think I am. But it's also been like a few years, and I don't know, I'm old. But other than that, I really like just about everything in Resident Evil. I found myself also very creeped out as well with a lot of the enemies, which I thought was kind of cool. It's been a little bit since I've been unnerved from an old, like, classic horror game. I mentioned being unnerved and obscure. And I still stand by that. But Resident Evil has a much scarier tone and feel. There were some rooms in Resident Evil I just kind of chickened out on. I was like, no, fuck that, dude. This is a trap or I'm going to get murdered. And it's a miracle I even managed to beat the game. Even with all I was struggling with. But Resident Evil 1 is classic survival horror at its finest. And I feel like if you're a fan of the genre or even looking to get into it, I think it's a great starting point. I think I'd recommend easy for just about everyone, which would be the middle option on the hiking chart. I was terrified because I was dying a lot, but I got better over time. You could do the lowest difficulty if you're worried about it. You could do normal if you're not a baby. We certainly were, but we also meant to pick normal in my defense. And I think a lot of the stuff that I had problems with is just the jank and style at the time. But that's it, and I hope you enjoyed this little, almost 13-minute gushing about Resident Evil. Now, I know the thumbnail for this is missing a period at the end, like all the other ones. Please do not comment that I forgot the period. Seriously, please don't. I will love you forever if you just please do not leave a comment and be like, hey, you forgot the period. Just don't do that, please. I really meant to have it. Cool. Yeah, I'm serious. Please don't. But yeah, check out Resident Evil.